Good afternoon. This is Dr. Lauren Christopher Dew. You're tuned into a program called Say a Word About This. I'm so glad you could join us on this Wednesday high noon. My. So much is happening. The program, Say a Word About This, uh, is, we can say basically what we want to talk about, but normally it's all about sex and sex in the Bible. And I do want to share just one thing because they always say you want to be relevant, and with all of the tornadoes and things that's happened in the last few days, we had one of our listeners to call us this morning and share with us what happened there in Joplin. They live exactly 5 miles from the eye of where this major tornado went through and destroyed a lot of property, obviously, and lives, many lives lost. And they were saying to me that I guess after the graduation, high school graduations there on Sunday, a number of people went to a pizza place and went there and were having their meal after the graduation. And I guess the sirens or whatever went off that gave them some alert, and they all rushed into some kind of a cooler or something of that nature. And apparently, the whole uh, pizza building was completely demolished. And this unit that the people went into, I don't know if it was a freezer or some kind of a very strong metal something, but they got in there. Well, apparently they have not found that yet. Today is now, this is what, almost 3 days. It is 3 days after the event, so it's like, wow. And then he was saying that they on the ground are still looking for some 1,500 people. He was there helping out, and so it's like, oh, our hearts go out. We know that the last death toll was 122, and with this happening and that happening, it's like, Lord, have mercy upon all of those in that area. We are doing a simulcast, so that's why we're going to kind of intro, say a word about this. Those of you that are there in YouTube land, and those of you that are in Blog Talk Radio land, we're just glad you could be with us. But I wanted to share that, and I tell you, since we were not doing the program for the moment anyway on Thursday evening, we don't have our typical time to talk about sexual issues. But I don't know if you around the country had heard of this woman 2 days ago, I guess it was now, this mother who killed her 9 and 3-year-old child because on Monday, I guess they were to go to the divorce hearing to determine custody hearing to determine now what's going to happen to the children. And so all we've heard is that at least that's what they're suspecting. She said the father was abusive, and so she didn't want the kids to be with the father. But I'm not sure if who's abusive with her killing them. I mean, she calls the police and says that she says, she needed help, that she was, children were with the Lord, and that she was basically, I guess, trying to kill herself. But obviously, the wounds, they say, were superficial. But my point is about this whole thing of abuse, and we talk about a lot about abuse, and especially the fact that as a minister, I share this frequently, that in 1 Corinthians 6 chapter, Paul spells it out for us that God is against abuse, and for a mother to take her children. And then over the years, we've had all these different stories. And the one that pops out the most is the mother, I guess in Texas or somewhere down south, who said some black man had killed her kids, and in fact, she's the one. Just all these things. It's so just horrific. And then just have. I think this is the second time in this last year, even having something of this nature. Mother and her kids here in Colorado. I mean, it's like we have a epidemic going on in America of abuse, whether it be just straight up sexual abuse or the physical abuse or murder. This is just plain out murder, but it's abusive murder. It's just something. And as I've said, and I've heard someone on a national program saying this, that if you suspect something or hear something or see something, and your gut tells you that it's not right, that it is abuse or it's something, do something about it. But, and I will say this, and they said this on the national broadcast, do not put yourself in harm's way. Protect yourself. And so I say that, but be careful. But still, the neighbor on the news was saying that she tried to befriend this lady because this woman would sit outside and watch her kids play and supervise everything they did outside, and then they went in, and they could never make a breakthrough, none of the neighbors. And so, that alone should tell people something just is very strange, was very strange going on. And we have that. You've seen things, I've seen things, and when I've seen it, I have in fact made a point to call someone or to do something. So I'm not telling you what I personally won't do or don't do or haven't done, but I encourage you. This whole program, though, you're watching, say a word about this. We talk about rape. We talk about incest. We talk about molestation. We talk about child sexual abuse. We talk about sexual trafficking. The content now that we're working on is the sex in the Bible, and just showing that this is an area that so many ministers and so many people that have the ability to be an encouragement, to be a one to help people, they haven't taken advantage of in the pulpit, in the right, in my opinion, to minister healing, to minister health, to encourage those who are married for years and for whatever reason they stop having sex. I mean, that's just and instead of someone saying, yeah, that's a gift from God and you should still do that, and it's a health thing, just so many aspects where I believe the pulpit, the men, women who are entrusted with the souls of men could do so much good to let them know, and to some of the lies that have been told about behaviors, that just so many things. I want you to know we're here to say a word about these issues. We're here to share with you what we believe from the Word of God is the truth. You make the call. See, I went through my challenge as a child. Didn't know I was going through because I'm 5, 6, 7. As a child, when things are happening, you don't know. You're in a state of innocency, and so. But God brought me through, and I often wonder. I think about the children that, like these kids that were killed, the two little kids, a 3-year-old and a 9-year-old. I think about the kids that have been sold into for sexual trafficking, children that are put out to be prostitutes. And I think, Lord, here you took me through, and so many others. And then the children that are born that are intersex, and their parents are embarrassed because the child is possibly a male and a female, or at least have both genitalia there. And the parents are embarrassed because, they're concerned about what their friends are going to say, and concerned, well, why did this happen? Let me tell you very clearly why we have intersex, why we have homosexuality, why we have lesbians, why we have those that are transsexual, why we have heterosexuals, why we have all of this. It all started right outside of the garden. It actually started right before that, but it started to propagate and to spread once Adam and Eve started having sex after in the garden when Eve listened to the snake or the serpent or the devil, whatever you want to call him. And I believe Eve had sex with the serpent, and she also enticed her husband to have sex with the serpent, and they had a threesome. And when God saw the perversion that was put upon Eve and Adam, and what would happen had they eaten the tree of life, and they would have lived forever, we would have all been here if God had let it go on. I don't think he would have. He put them out. He walked through the garden, and that's where shame started. And think about it. Think about when you were raped. At least I was raped. Think about if you were one who has been raped or knows of someone raped or someone molested or someone abused or someone touched inappropriately. The shame that comes from that. And think about in the garden, they said they were shamed. That spirit was released at that time. And they told God, he's welcome. So why are you hiding behind the fig leaves or whatever they were hiding behind? You know, it says because we were naked. And then he said, well, who told you you were naked? What did you do? God knew what they did. And that the first confession was made when they said, when we ate of that tree, you told us not to. The serpent told us, you know. And today we have the same spirit in the earth, all here in America. I believe that is what's fueled the greed. I mean, we go from sexual deviation, perversion, detour, whatever one of those words you want to use, to where we are in humanity with 6 to 7 billion people on the planet. And now the greed, and then with all that's happening, the famines that are coming, the shortages that are coming, all the stuff that's happening, it's just fueling, and it's horrific. But while we're waiting on the return, because last week this clown, I'm gonna call him a clown, I can do that, that's camping, this guy sitting over there in Oakland, saying, well, I made a mistake, he didn't say he made a mistake, he just said, well, it's going to be October. You know, I mean, anybody that listens and follows suit to him, they're about as bright as he is. Especially when we have a Bible that tells us, Jesus said it himself, no man knows the hour nor the time. You can read it, Matthew 25:31. You can read it yourself. And this guy, who was an engineer, sits over there in Oakland, and you know, Oakland, the hills were burned up at one time. Folks don't know why they were burned up, but if you look at the history of Oakland and all of the orgies that went on in those up there in those hills, you know, and then, you know, so you can't listen to, well, you can, I mean, hey, help yourself, but those of you that can read and can and believe, then Jesus said, if he didn't know, how is some clown gonna know? Some so-called preacher, some so-called teacher, who's not even who's an engineer by his, you know. Anyway, so, but again, all sex is all related to all these different things. I mean, you know, if you look at the history of Oakland and this camping guy and all what's happening there, rather than talk about the end of the world, what about getting some people saved? What about helping some people that are going through? What about helping some people who, you know, all these people that pull all their money out of the banks? I mean, of course, what was the money going to do if that was the end of the world? What were we going to do with the money? You know, unless they thought they weren't going, and so they figured they needed their money. I mean, I don't know. Hey, in any case, say a word. We're saying a word. The point is, hey, there's some situations that are happening